today's episode of Let's Talk Politics.
Current state of this society is immoral. Much as Penn has done, it could do and should do more. And the deep, profound engagement of the entire human, academic, institutional resources. Penn undergraduates have a major role in advancing this work.
Today, we are here with Dr. Harkavy, head of the Barbara and Edward Netter Center for Community Partnerships. Dr. Harkavy, thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here, and I enjoy this opportunity, Daniel, so thanks very much.
PPR is currently conducting interviews on the theme of Penn's relationship with the surrounding community. Could you explain what the Netter Center does and how it helps to bridge a relationship between Penn and West Philadelphia?
So the Netter Center, which was founded in 1992, so we're 28 and a half years old, is designed to engage the range of Penn resources, academic and institutional resources, volunteer resources, to simultaneously improve the quality of life in West Philadelphia, and improve the quality of research, teaching, service, and learning at Penn. It's designed to serve as a vehicle for making a difference on campus then and in the community, and to work deeply and democratically, to engage in democratic, mutually transformative partnerships between Penn and its local community of West Philadelphia in particular, but also the city of Philadelphia and the region.
You described the Netter Center as a vehicle for making a difference. More than just specifically the Netter Center, how would you characterize the relationship between the university, its community partners, and the West Philadelphia community writ large?
Well, that's a very hard question, and it's evolved over time. I've been involved in this work for literally decades, since I was actually a Penn undergraduate in the 1960s. So the relationship is one that evolves and changes over time. My summary of that relationship would be based on experiences I've had with community leadership and others, in which it would certainly be in the direction of having improved over time. That is, that Penn has taken great stride in its relationship with the community, but has a long way to go. So the way I would put it is that there has been, if one looks at it historically and looks at it within the context of actual experience, one would have to say that there has been an improving relationship with West Philadelphia. However, there's a great deal more that needs to happen, and there are still difficulties that exist between Penn and its community, not least of which is related to the fact that Penn is a powerful, wealthy institution existing within a community that faces severe disadvantage. And clearly, as much as Penn has done, it could do and should do more, not just for the community's sake, but I would argue to advance its own academic mission as a leading research university.
Could you talk more in detail about what it specifically should be doing?
So I think that the issue now, particularly post-COVID-19, post-George Floyd, post the insurrection in Washington, is it should in fact engage really the full range of university resources. Every department, every school should think of what it can do and could do and should do in terms of turning its intellectual and human resources to making a difference in the West Philadelphia community, as also a way of advancing its own academic mission. It should build on its already substantial activities related to minority and West Philadelphia procurement and hiring to do even more of that. It should, in other words, look across the entire institution, particularly across the academic components of the institution, to engage more of those resources in a more integrated way that is core actually to universities' teaching, learning, research, and service. So those are the general steps I think the university needs to take.
Looking at specific issues between Penn and the surrounding community, many critiqued Penn this year for their refusal to pay payments in lieu of taxes, otherwise known as pilots, which are financial contributions that property tax-exempt organizations voluntarily make to local governments. Instead of pilots, Penn announced that they would pay $100 million over 10 years to remediate environmental hazards in Philadelphia public school buildings. Is Penn doing enough to aid a school district that city officials estimate will be $700 million in debt by 2022?
Let me put it in the following way. I think that the question is Penn doing enough for the school district as it relates to a budgetary issue is important, but there's a broader question. And the broader question is, what else could Penn do to improve the schools, particularly of West Philadelphia, but also of the city, that would in fact make a dramatic difference in the quality of that schooling? That's the first question, and simultaneously fit with the university's mission. I believe fundamentally, that the most important thing the Penn could do is to devote itself seriously across all its schools and departments to making a difference in the community as a way of advancing its academic mission. That if we were to engage in helping West Philadelphia, Philadelphia to become a truly wonderful community, in the sense it's not wonderful now, but one that is much less disadvantaged, one with a decent quality of life for everyone, where there's really substantial opportunity, that has first-rate schools. If Penn were to do that, it would be the single greatest research university in the world. The most fundamental problem facing, I believe, American society and societies all over the world is the quality of life in our disadvantaged communities. And given the historically based, policy-supported, market-supported racism that exists deeply in these environments, given the injustice, given the savage inequalities, Penn should devote itself to helping to significantly reduce, if not eradicate, poverty, significantly reduce and eradicate racism, significantly work to create the best schools it possibly can. And for that to happen, it really requires increasing movement, not that things haven't happened, but more movement toward a deeper and more sustained and systemic democratic focus working in West Philadelphia. And that means not just research projects on the community, but working with the community, working with things such as the University Assisted Community Schools and the Netter Center. They're replicated all over the United States and around the world. That type of effort, more of it, would make a big difference. Now to get to the financial side of the question. I certainly think that the university needs to look at everything that it does at this time in order to think through what's the appropriate position to help make that improvement in the community. I think the Penn step with the $100 million was very significant. I think the question of pilots is something that is worth discussing and looking at given its current situation. However, and I'll say this again, that is much less significant long term than the deep, profound engagement of the entire human, academic, institutional resources to really make a difference in the community. And one of the issues is that Penn's role to be sustained over time, to make a real difference, is to engage its core operations, not just money, but core operations. And the university, even at its most extensive degree of giving, cannot make a profound difference by just giving money. And it also is not the basis of a deep relationship. So yes, 100 million was a great step. Looking at pilots now seems to me, given the impacts we've seen from COVID-19, which many people, of course, knew, but the absolute visibility of those inequalities, given the need to deal with the racism in the community, that as we saw so clearly with George Floyd and right in our own neighborhood, the killing of Walter Wallace, given what has occurred in terms of the violent insurrection goaded by the previous president that has certainly fascist overtones, given that the university should say, we take these issues as fundamental priorities, and we in our own community are going to create a democratic, neighborly community, as John Dewey wrote about, for the benefit of the community and for the benefit of the University of Pennsylvania. That, to me, would be the most significant thing that we could possibly do at this time, while looking at other things that could be helpful, such as the 100 million that we gave, such as looking at the possibilities of pilots in terms of, at this time, at least discussing it. But it would not, again, have the type of profound, powerful, long-term change. It also is not the basis of a relationship. You want that relationship not just to be giving money, you want it to be working together for significant social change. You want people to have close relationships as they work together to make a difference in the quality of life. You want it to be where we learn from and with the community, not just that they receive funds from us, which really is not the primary purpose at all of universities. We have, if our human resources turn this way in a significant way, if they turn this way, the amount of money that would translate to is way beyond pilots. and way beyond the 100 million, and much more significant and sustainable in healthcare, in education, in economic development. Just think of all the areas where Penn can make a profound difference, including in advancing the entire quality of life for the people of West Philadelphia, and by doing that, improving research and learning and teaching at the University of Pennsylvania.
That was a very compelling answer for why we have to do more than only research and financial contributions. So Penn's theme for the 2020-21 school year was the year of civic engagement. Building off of this idea of a democratic community, what can we specifically and individually do right now and in the future to become more civically engaged? And what can we do to encourage those around us to become more civically engaged?
So I think I've touched on one. One is the searching analysis of what each component of the university could do. That's one step. The other is for Penn, and that includes faculty teaching more ABCS courses, becoming involved in the schools and community as much as possible, more health engagement from the hospital, medical center, nursing school, etc., more engagement of all the schools and colleges. I don't need to go through the entire range of them. But then one thing it also entails Penn undergraduates and graduate students become deeply involved with programs in West Philadelphia in their academic work through ABCS courses and other programs. It means becoming involved in activities in which they are volunteering in sustained, serious ways in West Philadelphia. It means, in fact, having students come together and work through ABCS courses with faculty where multiple courses come together at a school site, for instance, so it can have an integrative effect. We all know these problems are so complex that no single intervention will solve it. So you want courses and programs in economics, in education, in history, in engineering, in medicine, coming together, and in fact, in a site, working long-term with those schools. So it really takes this effort of everyone. What also it means for undergraduates is advocating for this work, not just by taking ABCS courses, but by pushing for them, by designing them, by becoming involved in programs like the Community School Student Partnership in West Philadelphia, in Civic House, and other types of activities where they, by their action, show that this is important, and making it clear that this kind of work as volunteer and academic work is something students want, that is key to their education, and that they're going to be participating and pushing appropriately for more and better and more integrated. So those are steps. And I think Penn students, particularly Penn undergraduates, have a major role in advancing this work. If it were not for Penn undergraduate interest in the work, the Netter Center would not have made the strides it's made as an organization and made whatever differences we've made. We have now about 1,850 students a year taking ABCS courses, or about 70 courses a year. We started as a little thing. We have, and this is Penn undergraduate particularly, but also graduate student interest in this kind of work. So I think that type of positive but active and serious thought out engagement of Penn students could not be more important to advancing the work. We work with 8 university assisted community schools. It's about 3,700 students in those schools. Penn undergraduates and graduate students play a profound role in every single program we do. So I think there's a role for undergraduates as advocates, as participants, as leaders, as idea creators and program creators with the community, not on their own, but with them, and working with entities like Netter, where you can work with staff who work full-time with those community members. We have 50 full-time staff, 125 part-time staff, and those staff, over half of the staff, or about half of the staff that are part-time, actually live in West Philadelphia.
Wow, that was very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. That's definitely motivated me to do more for the surrounding community.
Good, I've done my job today.
Well, thank you so much. Shifting gears to the coronavirus pandemic. You and your colleagues are in the process of publishing a paper called Higher Education's Response to the COVID-19 Pandemic. Could you talk about the impact and influence that universities, especially Penn, have had on the pandemic?
Penn's done an extraordinary job. I mean, in terms of what it's done. The schools and colleges, Penn, particularly the health schools, have been leaders in engaging the role of faculty and students, serving the community, both initially with the tests, but now with the vaccine, the development of some of the science that has led to the vaccine, the involvement of students and faculty in nursing and social policy and SP2 is another example. The role of the medical school, departments in medicine that have taken steps forward. So there has been an engagement of trying to serve the healthcare needs, both within the hospital itself, but in the community. And there's been much more outreach. And there's also been faculty and students rising to the occasion of assisting in many, many ways, including working with the schools, including providing goods and services, including doing research to develop necessary responses to the healthcare crisis, from, in fact, providing protective gear to a range of activities, food distribution, et cetera. So there's been a lot done. But what COVID-19 reveals is how much more has to be done. So as powerful as that is, and as impressive as that is, and this is not just Penn, these are higher education institutions more broadly, we have a long-term agenda. What COVID-19 again indicated, laid bare, is the current state of this society is immoral, to be very direct, immoral. That there's no return to normal, because normal has been violent, destructive, and unfair to millions of Americans. No return. What that means is that in higher education takes what COVID-19 has revealed and make that a profound focus, a principled focus, a primary focus of its work. And so what that means is in healthcare, in education, in economic development, in community planning, in social welfare, all of this work has to change. And what Penn needs to do is make a response to COVID-19, what it revealed and what its aftermath will be, as I said, primary focus of university work, and test itself on the difference it makes in the community, just like it tested itself on what it was doing around healthcare, and which has been significant, and providing services. The idea of that they take on as a key agenda, helping to deal with those societal plagues and decreasing them, reducing them, and eradicating them. And that includes racism, dealing with savage inequalities, and increasing social justice. So I would see we've done a lot, but what COVID-19 reveals is we have a lot more to do. And whatever's been done in the past is insufficient. We've risen to the occasion of the crisis. Now we have to make a future in which we have a sufficient response that produces actual change on the ground for these people. And again, as I've argued, that would be among the best ways of improving the academic performance of Penn, including the learning of Penn undergraduates.
What does the future relationship between Penn and West Philadelphia look like? What is a vision where the school and the community are thriving together?
That's brilliant. That is a brilliant question. So what we really want to do is work toward what Martin Luther King described, creating the beloved community, creating a community of democratic partnership, of mutual learning, of mutual respect, creating a relationship in which we are brought together on a continuous, ongoing basis, not dependent on research grants, not dependent on a specified crisis, but that we work together to actually improve the quality of life of the people in West Philadelphia, not just improving the environment so people leave or pushed out, for the people in the community, while we improve simultaneously our research, teaching, learning, and so involved with a democratic purpose of improving, creating democratic local community together. We are working together with a democratic process where we have transparent partnerships and we treat each other as ends and not means to an end. What is valued are the people themselves. And that's why it can never be just money. It's the value we have to each other as human beings, and we see each other as having a common fate, and we are transparent and open in our work, and that we have a democratic product, which means we just don't improve the community. Penn becomes transformed and really becomes a democratic civic university, which enables us to realize Benjamin Franklin's vision for the University of Pennsylvania. Benjamin Franklin's vision, as you may know, when he wrote in 1749, Proposals for the Educating of Youth of Pennsylvania, which was really the curriculum that he designed for Penn. He said the purpose of a Penn education was to develop in young people, he said men, but young people, an inclination, moral, as it were, with an ability to serve. An inclination joined with an ability to serve mankind, human beings, one's country, friends, and family, which ability to serve is a great aim and end of all learning. If we engage in this, it also will have the process of helping to educate Penn students, graduate and undergraduate, but particularly undergraduate students, with a lifelong inclination and ability to serve, in which Penn graduates make a significant difference in improving the community, the society, and the world. So that's the vision. The vision is democratic partnership, mutually beneficial, transparent, with the goal of creating a better university and a better community in which we really create, in practice, Dr. King's vision of a beloved community.
Well, Dr. Harkavy, that's it for questions. So thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Daniel. I very much appreciated our time together, and thanks very much for inviting me.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Let's Talk Politics with Dr. Harkavy. Be sure to go to pennpoliticalreview.org for more interviews and articles, and to keep your eye open for future podcast episodes. Please also make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends, as it will help our podcast gain more traction. Finally, make sure to attend and RSVP for PPR's Reporting on Criminal Justice event. The link to the Facebook event can be found in the description.